Scariest. We've all heard of Airbnb, and many of us have stayed at them. But staying at an Airbnb comes with caveats that hotels don't have. That includes trusting a private owner to deliver a safe and professional atmosphere. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case. Sometimes we end up in homes that aren't safe, and sometimes even tragedy strikes. Here's a few stories where just that happens. They arrived under the evening sky of Vancouver, two sisters from Alberta, hopeful and lighthearted. They had chosen the west side neighborhood of Kitsilano, with its beach, its laid-back cafes, the promise of summer stretching into the night. The rental was a room on West 3rd Avenue, and a two-bedroom apartment whose listing on Airbnb promised comfort and convenience. What they did not fully realize was that the host would also live on the premises. The arrival had been smooth. The city's salty air greeted them as they walked from the SkyTrain station, their suitcases rolling over sidewalk cracks. The neighborhood seemed calm. Row houses with painted facades, porches with string lights, the faint rumble of the seawall nearby. After checking in, they dropped their bags in the room, changed into walk shoes, and wandered out towards the beach. The light was fading out, but the horizon glowed with pink that melted into blue. They paused at a seaside cafe for a drink, shared fries, laughed about the flight delays and the rough plan for the next 2 days. Bike bells rang on the path, couples strolled along with blankets and wine. They inhaled the moment. Back at the rental, they settled in for their first night. The apartment felt like a good choice. Quiet block, listings described minimal host interruption, good reviews. They felt safe. The older sister tucked into her phone for a moment, reading about the local cafes for the next morning. The younger sister shut the blinds and drifted off into sleep. Behind walls, the host remained in the other room. The listing had written shared space, but not emphasized that the owner lived there simultaneously. Around 3 a.m., silence shifted. A door down the hall clicked. A voice rose, agitated and strange. "They're torturing my cat." Something about baiting cats in the neighborhood. The older sister stirred, half awake. She heard footsteps outside her door, slow, heavy, the scrape of something long. The younger sister remained asleep, unaware. The host, identified later as Arvin Pasha, was pacing with a large knife, roughly 30 centimeters. Suddenly, the door to the room was forced. Broken glass, chaos. One sister was stabbed in her head, neck, and hand. The other in her head, neck, and arm. The moment fractured their holiday into something else entirely. Fear, pain, disbelief. In that hall, they were no longer just guests, they were targets. A man who believed his cat was being harmed confronted them with violence. The older sister, pinned to the wall, remembers the glare of the blade and the sudden red bloom of blood. The younger awoke to screaming, glass cracks, and the shock of something unimaginable. Neighbors heard the screams. One witness described seeing one young woman lying on her back, scarf stained white, neck bleeding badly, the other pinned to the wall with a knife at her throat. Police arrived, arrested Pasha, and the sisters were rushed to hospital. Their injuries were severe but survivable. Both would live and heal, but the aftershocks would linger. For days, the younger sister's doctors discovered a piece of the knife lodged in her face, her smile now crooked, her sense of security shattered.
One young lady, she appeared to have a stab wound in the neck or neck area. She was on the floor lying on her back and she was bleeding very, very badly. There was another young lady who was pinned to the wall and being threatened by a knife.
Saad Mustafa says the attacker fled through a side door when he called 911. Pasha was later arrested at the scene. The accused's lawyer says the judge considered all of the relevant factors and released Pasha on strict conditions that do address public safety concerns.
In court filings, the host admitted responsibility. He had been living in the apartment while renting out a room on Airbnb. The guests were unaware of his presence. He had pleaded guilty to assault with a weapon and assault causing bodily harm for the attack that took place May 27, 2022. On May 1st, 2025, he was given a 22-month conditional sentence to be served in the community with curfews and conditions, followed by 3 years of probation.
Pasha stabbed both victims during an acute episode of mental disorder, said the judge, who found his moral blameworthiness was reduced because he fell into psychosis after a bout of cannabis use. Court heard 2 Alberta sisters were asleep at his Kitsilano Airbnb in May 2022. Pasha was pacing outside with a 12-inch knife, saying, "They're torturing my cat."
For every traveler, this story holds a warning. An apartment ground floor, a night walk to the beach, a listing with fine print about shared living. Check it twice. Even in places of sunshine and calm, vulnerability hides in plain sight. The holiday they had dreamed of became a fight for life, a struggle for healing, a journey nobody plans for. In the end, the waves on Kitsilano Beach still roll in, the bikes still hum on the path, still cafes light up at dusk. But for them, and for all who hear this tale, the real ripple runs deeper. Trust broken, confidence altered, the world no longer quite the same. They arrived as a family intending a simple weekend rental getaway. 11 in total. Cousins, parents, and children booked a large house on West Madison's quiet Ashworth Drive. The house was suburban style, with a green lawn, driveway, and the promise of space and privacy. It looked perfect. The listing showcased communal movie nights, a barbecue, a large dining room where the family could gather, catch up, and laugh. The children would roam freely, the adults would share meals, the weekend would roll by in a warm ease. But beneath the calm facade lay a hidden violation of trust. They checked in on a Friday afternoon in July 2025. The sky was clear, the air warm. Winding down from travel, they unpacked suitcases. The kids raced through bedrooms upstairs. The adults slipped onto the porch for iced tea. They joked about exploring Madison's west side, maybe a stroll near Lake Monona, maybe a treat at a local cafe. Everything seemed benign. That evening, one of the parents went to the upstairs communal bathroom. Later that night, another child used the same bathroom. The house felt quiet. The group broke into smaller clusters, the younger children in bunk rooms, the teenagers streaming movies, the adults catching up in the living room. Late into the night, one of the adult guests noticed something odd. An electrical outlet's faceplate looked slightly different. A small lens, a memory card slot, a hidden camera aimed toward the toilet or shower area. Panic set in. They alerted the others. They found a second device, this time in a bathroom used by children. In that moment, the weekend retreat transformed into something else. Trust broken, privacy invaded. 11 people, many of them children, realized they were no longer just guests in a house. They were subjects in a space under unannounced surveillance. Officials later confirmed that the devices were wired directly into the outlet. The mood changed, laughter faded. The family gathered in the living room, hushed voices, hearts racing. They called the owner, they accessed their phones. They contacted Airbnb, and the listing was suspended. They then contacted the police.
Investigators say the renter discovered hidden cameras in the master bathroom along with the other upstairs bathroom. When Madison police asked the renter who had used the restroom, he said everyone. There were 11 guests, 6 of them were children. Police searched the home on Ashworth Drive and found cameras in the bathrooms and nowhere else. After that, they arrested the owner of the home, Patrick Sayas. He is now being charged with invasion of privacy.
It's hard to imagine being on a perfect vacation with your family, only to have that shattered and to realize you're being stalked by someone sinister. Investigators from the Madison Police Department arrived. They documented the devices. In their warrant, they flagged the invasion of privacy. Based on training and experience, cameras placed in private areas such as bathrooms are often intended to capture individuals in a nude or private state without their knowledge. The family packed up early. The rest of the weekend vanished. No beach trips, no laughing dinners, no unwinding. Instead, interviews, checking phone footage, questions about who stayed in the house before them, whether the owner had disclosed surveillance. The sense of vulnerability grew heavier with each new detail. For viewers watching, this story holds a warning. Even a home that looks safe can hide violations of privacy. A family's weekend of togetherness should never involve secret recording devices. The sense of home and escape should not carry a trap. As the family left the property, driving away from Ashworth Drive, the children sat quietly in back seats. The adults kept the radio off, each lost in thought. What if the cameras had been recording for weeks? What if the next guests were unaware? What trust is broken when walls that should protect instead spy? The rental listing, the house, the green lawn, the quiet street, they remain as they were. But for that family, and for anyone who hears this story, the image is altered. Because behind every polished vacation rental photo is a promise, not just of comfort, but of safety. When that promise is broken, the damage is real, and the healing takes time.
The detective believes that the cameras were placed with the intent to record
images of private areas of the renters.
They had arrived expecting a quiet weekend getaway to the Hudson Valley. A mother, a father, and their 2 young children. The father a patrolman, the mother a devoted preschool teacher. The little ones, ages 3 and 1, booked a rental home tucked along a forested lane in Clinton Hollow Road in upstate New York. The date was October 13th, 2024. The early evening air was still, forests whispering in the twilight. They unloaded bags, the children bounding through rooms, excitement and an escape from routine. The mother, from Brewster, Massachusetts, aged 35, had been looking forward to this family time. She was a preschool teacher and loved those moments of closeness. Dinner was simple. Footsteps in the wooden hall, children brushing teeth, the scent of autumn driftwood from the porch. After dark, the family settled in. The father, aged 39, sat on the patio for a moment, while the 3-year-old and 1-year-old were asleep upstairs. The house felt silent, safe, as the night deepened. At approximately 10:40 p.m., a sense of alarm broke the quiet. The father and wife smelled smoke while outside. He dialed 911 while the mother went inside to check on her children. Crews were called to the fire. Fire and smoke overwhelmed them. The 2 children and their mother were on the 2nd floor when the blaze erupted. First responders found the father outside. Entry into the home proved impossible at first due to heavy fire conditions until mutual aid crews arrived. Despite heroic efforts, the mother and her 1-year-old daughter did not survive. They were pronounced dead at nearby hospitals. The father and the 3-year-old boy survived with non-life-threatening injuries.
Westchester County couple charged with manslaughter after a fire at an Airbnb that they own in Dutchess County.
The October fire in Salt Point killed a teacher from Massachusetts and her daughter, and experts say it is a tragic warning for anyone who stays in a short-term rental.
For the father and surviving son, the rest of the weekend melted away. There would be no restful breakfast, no laughter in the yard, no family board games in the living room. What remained was shock, grief, and the logistics of loss. Hospital visits, investigators, funeral arrangements, community support. Shannon's role as a preschool teacher meant her school community in Cape Cod, students, families, colleagues, now carried her memory. And for the little boy, the 3-year-old, the world shifted on one night. A mother no longer at his side. The small home that promised fun and freedom now marked the day his world changed. The father, a public servant accustomed to protecting others, now bore the weight of protecting, remembering, and rebuilding with his surviving son. As expected, the homeowners fell under intense scrutiny following the incident. They didn't have smoke detectors properly installed, but had noted that they did on their Airbnb posting. They've since been charged with manslaughter. When you drive past a calm house at a tree-lined lane, it may look peaceful. But for that family, the house at Clinton Hollow Road is forever tied to flames, to loss, to the silence of a life snuffed out too soon. The promise of escape became a tragedy. It is a reminder that safety measures, smoke detectors, code compliance, clear escape routes are not details. They are lifelines. The area still sees the autumn dusk, the whistle of wind in the trees, the quiet lawn outside the home. But inside, the memory remains vivid. A mother's voice, a child's giggle, the flash of fire. A family's week can turn tragic in moments. And for them, the absence echoes louder than the house ever felt full.